Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Locked On Seminoles, brought to you by Stat Hero. Stat Hero is reshaping the way you play fantasy sports, and we are reshaping the way you listen to podcasts every single day, Monday through Friday, making you a little bit smarter about Florida State sports on YouTube, on your podcast, and wherever you may listen to us. We are happy that you're here. We've got a Mailbag Monday episode for y'all today. We are going to talk about several things, and honestly, we're probably just going to start with letters and see what we get through. So I don't want to promise something I'm not going to talk about. Topics will include Renardo Green moving to corner, Azareye'h Thomas, Sam McCall type talk. And I don't know, maybe we'll clap back at some of the Miami fans in our comments, because that was hilarious to watch y'all melt down. Yeah, cool. Drake, play the video. Let's roll. Mailbag Monday. Do it.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This is Locked On Seminoles.
Folks, like I said, today's episode is brought to you by Stat Hero. Stat Hero is basically an innovative way to play daily fantasy where you're playing against single set lineups rather than a pool of players, so you have a better chance. It's a lot of fun. Go to stathero.com and check it out. If you're not on YouTube, make sure you check us out there, youtube.com, and subscribe. We are at over 850, and I could not be more honored to be with my brothers, Dave, my boy Drake, as y'all keep hitting that subscribe button. So thank you for that. Gentlemen, as I get the questions up, how are we doing today? How are the various, y'all are pretty much at diametric ends of the West Coast, right? With
West
Miami or
West
East Coast. Did I say West? I'm going to California this week. It makes me think of West Coast. Y'all are basically at opposite ends of the spectrum of I-95. I did really well, actually, 100% on my states and capitals test. And folks, let's dive into some questions. We are going to start with our boy Reg. Reg is always coming in with the good questions. And he says very simply that he heard Woodson say in an interview, Renardo Green is playing cornerback and might be a dark horse for the spot. Renardo Green played cornerback in high school, and he has been playing safety at Florida State. Gentlemen, what do you think about a potential move of Renardo to cornerback for both him and the roster as a whole?
Drake, you can comment on this if you have any more firsthand knowledge, but it seems an awful lot to me like we're not going to see a lot of Jarvis Brownlee this year. Cornerback suddenly is a spot we need warm bodies at. There's a lot of, Drake, we talked last week, there's a lot of true freshman talent at the position, not a lot of real life experience. Renardo Green's actually been a bizarrely efficient player at FSU. Like PFF graded him 73 in 2019, 66 in 2020, and 70.7 last year. Those are pretty decent numbers. That's above average overall and in our DB field. So I don't mind the move, especially if, he's been looking good in practice there.
I've been saying for the past 2 years that Renardo Green, when healthy, is your best defensive back by far. And that's the one caveat, is that he is primarily never, ever healthy. He was supposed to start last year over Sidney Williams. He didn't. Akeem Dent also was hurt. That's why we saw Sidney Williams playing a lot of those snaps. Now, to me, this is more that he probably honestly was one of those DBs that potentially might have been shown the door, because we did see Greedy Vance come in, because you see younger kids coming in like an Azareye'h Thomas or a Sam McCall. But overall, to me, it's more that he's finally healthy. He's finally actually showing up because he has the talent, and he has the work ethic to back it up. So to me, this is more that you got to put your best guys out there, especially when your linebacking core is so weak, and we're going to have a lot more DBs on the field. And Renardo Green, to me, like I said before, is your best defensive back when healthy. And now we have a healthy Akeem Dent. So are going to push him out?
Yeah.
Renardo Green in there? No. So to me, put Renardo Green down to corner to be basically the elder statesman of that room with an Amarian Cooper and a very young Kevin Knowles too.
Yeah, and I don't think the coaching staff disagrees with you. Last year he had 121 snaps across 4 games. I'm looking at a snap chart right now. 67 snaps against 20 snaps against Notre Dame, 67 snaps against Jacksonville State, 58 against Wake, and then 64 against Louisville. His percentage always leaned towards being in coverage, right? With 50% of those snaps in coverage against Notre Dame, 47 of his 67 against Jacksonville State in coverage, 32 of 58 against Wake, and 32 of 64. So the staff agrees with you that he's a solid defender. It's just he didn't play after the 4th game of the season last year. And I don't want to be a pessimist because I don't want to steal your thunder, but he's finally healthy. Yeah, but he was finally healthy at the beginning of last year too. So it's one of those things where only time will tell. And I think we have to operate with the information we have in front of us. And that is he's healthy right now. He played 40 snaps a game on average last year when he was healthy. And if he sticks out at that, yeah, he probably is going to be an asset to the team, whether it's at safety or whether it's at corner. I'm looking at his coverage right now, and I'm trying to get a breakdown of his man coverage versus his zone coverage. To be honest, not entirely sure where to find that. What I can tell you is that he primarily lined up at the free safety spot, but he did cheat into the box 51 of his 120 snaps. So he's not afraid to play closer to the line of scrimmage. I don't think man coverage in the safety slot is typically the same as man coverage in the corner slot either. So I'll leave that decision up to the coaches. And I'll say he's
man. He can do both.
Yeah. And that's the thing. He's been successful at Florida State, right? We can unequivocally say, like you said, when he's healthy, 121 snaps in 4 games last year, 123 snaps the year before, 96 snaps the year before. He is effective on the field. So I think that the coaching staff would only move him to corner if that translates.
You know what I find funny about this Renardo Green conversation is he's the opposite, I think, of the name syndrome thing. Like, he's not one of those guys I think of when I think of all the ridiculous blue chip DBs we have in our backfield. He's kind of more of a forgotten name who, like Drake said, could end up being one of the best DBs we have. So I'm glad the coaches are not doing this by like, oh, this guy was a 5-star, he has to see the field, or, like they're letting somebody like Renardo Green move positions. His 4th year in the program. That's great. If he's the best cornerback we have, good. Put him at CB1. I don't care.
Put it this way. He was highly touted in high school, and Ohio State was very pushing for him highly to come over there. And Ohio State recently has had a very good track record when it comes to defensive backs, whether it be a Denzel Ward or I forgot the kid's name that went to Cleveland and also the Detroit Lions. Like, to me, those are kids that, like, if Ohio State wanted him badly and we beat him out for him, that's someone that has untapped potential in my eyes.
Yeah. Do you know what his other offer of significance was out of high school?
Not on the top of my head. No, do you?
Cincinnati.
Bama.
No, Cincinnati. So it's an odd offer sheet, right? It's Florida State, Ohio State, Boston College, Cincinnati, Duke. That's my point is Ohio State and Cincinnati have both in recent years since his class, right? 2019 found DBs that were not 5 stars. Now, Ohio State also has 5 stars. So I'm not saying they don't have any, but both of them have taken three stars and developed them. So if those 2 schools at that time were seeing something in him, he's clearly a good get. And again, he played 92 snaps as a true freshman. It's not bad at all. He's got to stay healthy this year. So I'm with you, Dave. I don't think about him at all when I thought about our DB room, probably because we haven't seen him play since September of last year. But again, if he's healthy, the grades are there. I'm with it, man. And folks, before we go on to our next question, I do want to remind you about Stat Hero. It's a new take on daily fantasy. If you've been listening to the program for a while, you've heard me talk about Dr. John. Dr. John is a classmate of mine from grad school who does professional fantasy football on the side of his day job. He is extremely smart, smartest person I've ever met. He is extremely good with computers, and there's no way you will ever beat him at daily fantasy. So we have a sponsor now that helps you get around that with Stat Hero. So I recommend you all check it out. Stat Hero lets you play against preset lineups. So you can say, hey, this is the lineup I want to play against, and I'm going to pick a lineup that goes against them. And that gives you a chance of actually winning versus when you go into a pool of all the other players. Dudes like Dr. John are going to work you and take all your money. So check out stathero.com right now, and you can sign up for free at stathero.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/lockedon, promo code LOCKEDON. And when you're done with that, you've probably worked up an appetite. You're probably getting a little nervous. Ow, kicked my desk. To see how your lineup did. And you're probably going to need something to get you through the day. You don't want to eat a big meal, right? Because I assume you're setting your lineup during like a little break from work and it's not meal time. So grab a Built Bar, 17 grams of protein, 5 carbs, 4 grams of sugar. It is delicious. It is nutritious. And it is exactly what you need to get you through your day, through your workout, or refuel you after your day or after your workout. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and get the treat that will serve you anytime that you need. BuiltBar.com, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off. So I want to talk about the Brownlee situation real quick because that last segment didn't run super long. And and I don't want to talk about what may or may not have happened, but do y'all see a bigger loss at the cornerback position or at the safety position from people having to move over to cover for him?
Roger.
That's a good question.
Assuming he doesn't play. I mean, look, everything could get sorted out with the young man. He could be back in uniform. They start practice on Monday, could be back, but let's speculate on this front. Let's say he doesn't play next year, where's he more of an impact on the roster, directly, or I guess indirectly through that movement?
I would say maybe safety, because like the kids we have mentioned, they have had injury issues, right? So if he is not on the roster, you're gonna have to move one of them to corner, as we're seeing right now with possibly Renardo Green. Now, Renardo Green, as we said earlier, hasn't had the best, bill of health since he's been here. Akeem Dent as well was not super healthy for a majority of his career here. And Sidney Williams, another kid that was there, got hurt towards the end of last season and didn't play much. So if you're taking that's probably, our safety room is very solid, but if someone does get hurt, you basically have to rely on somebody else that already has that sort of snake bitten issue. So to me, probably would be the safety position is probably more, I guess, hurt by this, what happened here.
No, I can't possibly disagree with that more. Jarvis Brownlee was our number one cornerback. He was our CB1 going into next year. Again, I've said this before. You have eyes. You've seen him get beaten coverage. We all have. But nobody hit harder. Nobody played with more effort. And I don't think we're still at the point where effort is a participation trophy here. That can't be the case in year 3 under Norvell. But Jarvis Brownlee, for better or worse, was expected to be our best cornerback next year. Him being out.
That's where I disagree with you with that. I don't think he is.
That's fine.
I don't know about our best, but he was expected to contribute and be a starter, I think.
Yeah, he was a start. I think he was our number one cornerback. I do think that. But regardless, there's a lot more options, I think, to replace him. That's where I do agree with you, Drake. At the cornerback position, we talked last Friday. Go back and listen to that episode. Probably, I don't know, put it up there or something. But there's a lot of options. There's a lot of names, but a lot of talented options at the safety position. Obviously you have Jamie. He has one spot locked down. God forbid an injury were to happen to him. I have no idea what that position would look like. But behind him, you have an often injured Akeem Dent. What else? Sam McCall, maybe? Is he going to be a safety this year?
So Sam McCall's getting burned at corner. That's kind of where my point is.
Well, I don't know. I don't know who's left at safety behind him. That's the part I do agree with you about.
Yeah, I mean, I will say one more thing too. And sorry, I'm trying to pull it up right now because I looked at it, but I want to make sure I quote the number right. When you look at Jarvis Brown or Renardo, when you look at Renardo Green, I can do this. When you look at Renardo Green, his run defense grades are average at best, and he's also 189 pounds. So he should be able to step up against the run at that size, but he's rocking an average of. They do this average weird. They say they've got him at a 75 for the season, but in Notre Dame, he was a 61, then 64, 70 at Wake. It's pretty good. 72 at Louisville. So not terrible, I guess. But then you got Jarvis Brownlee at run defense, right? And his average at the bottom on 844 snaps, 381 of those being run defense, is a 91.4. So
oh my God.
A very, very solid run stopper on the outside.
Really damn good with doing that.
And you look at your defensive line, right? You've got Fabian Lovett and you've got Coop up the middle. And I know, Drake, when you were on the Locked On, the Listen Up podcast representing Locked On with Sam and was it Brandon?
Brandon, yeah.
Sam and Brandon, yeah. I listened to that episode earlier today, and y'all talked about the defensive end, but the reality is there's a lot of question marks there. So if I'm an opposing coach, I don't know, I'm probably going to try to run to the outside and test our ends more than I'm going to try to test Fabian Lovett and Robert Cooper up the middle. And we're going to need guys on the outside that can stop the run. And that's what you really lose in Jarvis Brownlee, is a guy who, he's a $181. He's not huge, but he's got great run stopping grades. And he doesn't have amazing, because we've all seen him get shook, but he has solid tackling grades. So can you replicate that on the outside? Sam McCall is a great example. How big, what is Sam McCall? 6'1", 190-ish, something like that?
I believe so. I can double check real quick.
But something like that. He's not tiny, was the point I was making. He physically maybe could do it, but I got to think that's probably the hardest adjustment of college, right? It's one thing to cover the same. And, maybe the guys are faster, but you play a lot of 7-ons like McCall. You're used to elite speed. You're used to elite receivers running good routes and covering them. Can you throw off a 21, 22-year-old receiver who's been in a weight program for 4 years when he gets under your pads and is blocking you to the outside? And how are you going to do against a running back coming full tilt at you down by the line of scrimmage? So again, I'm most worried with Brownlee about that run defense replication. But anyway, this isn't our mailbag. We're talking about the people's mailbag. Trademarked by The Rock. I'm sure it is. So we'll give him the shout out there. Yeah, we have lots of questions, but the one I wanted to get into was the NIL question. Basically saying that we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Here we go. They need to change the laws in Florida or we will always be behind. Louisiana is changing their laws for the NIL so schools can directly help facilitate NIL deals for players.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a lot of opinions about the NIL stuff, but I'll let someone else kind of jump in with their opinions on the NIL stuff.
Dave, you go on this one.
All I'm going to say is this. The state of Florida, if you've paid attention to what the politicians have been saying, they've expressed concern about, putting more Ferraris in the hands of 18-year-olds, as I think I don't want to quote, it wasn't a direct quote, it was something to that effect, right?
Basically.
More, as in how many Ferraris are in the
hands of 18-year-olds,
the what you call it, the indoor practice facilities parking lot, which is on.
But that's how they're characterizing it. And as a result, they have totally punted on enacting any legislation to change Florida NIL laws until at least next year. That's a problem because yet again, this is another year that at the inception of this whole NIL process, all the Florida schools are still going to lag behind other states that are going to have a head start in this whole NIL game. And that is a massive problem. It's interesting to me that a state which purports to be like this free capitalism, free market economy kind of state, that's, no political views expressed here, but decided to not have an open market in terms of NIL. I just find that curious. And the fact that it didn't change is no bueno for Florida State.
So, yeah, I mean, look, I talk about a lot of things on here and I love making people upset. It does it for me in a way.
Right.
And y'all can come at me about, this player, that player, what do I know? Because what do I know? I'm a dude with a microphone. One thing I know more than you all about, most of you, 99.9% of you, is lobbying, because that's what I did for a living for half a decade. Right. So I can make 2 points here. One, not passing something is not the same as rejecting something. I think it's just bad timing. You look at like what's going on right now, and it's an election year. We do our gubernatorial elections on the half right of presidential. So it's a 2-year. You also have Ron DeSantis is going to run for president. It's no secret. Everyone knows that. Yep. So this year was about two things: messaging bills and relaying those messaging bills to the general public, right? NIL just wasn't part of that. So it's a bummer it didn't get passed. It's a bummer it didn't get swallowed up in the in the larger budget bill, but I wouldn't be too pessimistic about it passing down the road. I also want to make the point of, does it really matter as much as we think it does? And what I mean by that is the market for NIL sponsors is small. You need to have a good amount of money, probably a lot of money. You need to have an active revenue generating business to make it worth your while, unless you just want to do it like a booster fund. And you need to know which players you need to influence. The school not being able to coordinate NIL deals doesn't really matter as much as we're acting like it does, because people that do all three of those things, they're already looking for kids to give money to. They know that they can do it now. And they're calling people like us. They're calling people like the people that are in the know. They're saying, hey, which kids are y'all hearing we might be in on the trail if I get something together? And the reality might be, we just don't have the base out there that people like to pretend that we do. Because if we had $20 million worth of NIL deals waiting, this would not be the log jam. And yet those people aren't lining up to give huge sums of monies to our players.
Drake, let me throw that to you with a question. Is the difference in terms of the school being able to participate basically like the ability for a renowned fundraiser like Michael Alford, for example, to be involved in the facilitation of NIL deals? Because that's what I see as the main benefit, to the extent that's possible.
It just makes it a little more, what's the word? Not annoying, but it's a lot more frustrating. And you also have to, it's a lot more onus on the individual to actually go out of their way to actually conduct that sort of thing. When you actually go through the school can provide you the resources to connect you with these people. It's a lot easier. Like it doesn't, it's more of it's an unnecessary obstacle in my personal opinion. And that, but to me, like I wouldn't look at the bill legislation as kind of being sort of what's making FSU NILs bad, because I'm pretty sure that we're in the same state as Miami. We're in the same state as UCF.
And that's the point.
And we're in the same state, University of Florida. They've had no issues when it comes to actually going with a collective, whether it be the Gator Collective headed by Darren Heitner UCF has mission control. Now we have Warpath. Like, to me, like, you need to look at actually what kids are actually probably mainly doing. This is not like, it's not an excuse to be this far behind, especially when, hey, we started Apex first, right? That was a great thing that came out last June. I haven't heard about that since. Oh, Rising Spear came out, all the boosters. That web page was blank for 2 months. And I emailed the guy several times, like, hey, how can I help? Because this is something I love to do and talk about. Nothing came up. Now we know it was finally announced. I haven't heard about it since. Warpath just got dropped with Dreamfield and Mackenzie Milton. Like, that's something that should definitely help. But overall, the bill, it's not an excuse to be basically lagging behind everyone else too.
The reality is Mackenzie Milton graduated. He's not a football player anymore. He's a 23-year-old kid. What I'm saying is, if he's the one in the driver's seat, you're probably not going to see it be this game-changing thing. It will generate some donations. They're trying to do a crowd-funded thing. It sounds like a decent idea. But the reality is, when you fill up a jar, right, your rocks are what are going to take up the most spots, not the sand and not the pebbles. Y'all are focusing on the sand. But my point is that if the rocks wanted to be in the jar, and by rocks wanting to be in the jar, I mean, if people with a lot of money wanted to fix our NIL deficiencies, they would have put themselves in there already and already done it. So we can blame a bill, and it's not good that the law is the way it is. I agree with you, Deuce. I do. Let's fix it. But we have bigger problems. We can't even get our booster fund up to fully endowing all of our scholarships right now.
We still haven't broken ground on an FOF that we've been promised for 8 years. And we know that for a fact that's been used as like something against us for recruiting. And then with the Mackenzie Milton thing, I mean, I know who he's working with, of course, in ECA too. Like, that's like probably a good relationship, but I think that actually you're giving him a little, I guess, not enough credit for actually what he's been doing with that, especially being spearheading it with De'Aaron King doing as well, with basically helping push NIL forward like she probably last year. I'm
sure he's doing great for NIL, and I'm sure he's doing great for Mackenzie Milton, which is good. I'm happy for him. I'm saying, if that's who's driving it for our school specifically, if we don't have someone with the booster connections, because he only played here for a year, and someone that really understands the people that they need to be going to get these donations, it's not going to unlock this plethora of donations to NIL, or I guess you can call them payments because they're not donations, that have been waiting to go through. That's a good point. Let me clean that up a bit. I'm not saying he can't succeed in business. He can't be successful for student athletes. I'm saying that if he's the one driving our ship, because the guy he's working with, that's fine. I heard his interview on the bench. Sounds like he's passionate, but they're in it for the business side of it. They're not really in it for the Florida State side of it. No offense. That's just a reality. And you're not going to get this huge splurge of NIL funds from a bunch of $100 donations. It's just not what's going to happen. So again, if the Rocks wanted to be in the jar, they would have put themselves in there by now. And while, again, this bill should be cleaned up, it's not going to unlock the floodgates. So, folks, if you want to unlock the floodgates, though, and you want to be making bank this spring, regardless of how much your name, image, or likeness may be worth, well, maybe you should be checking out March Madness. Did you call some upsets? Did you have money line against Kentucky? You would have made bank. So be the guy or the lady that gets it for the next time around by going to betonline.net. BetOnline.net, it has places you can bet. It is a place you can bet, and it's got information. It makes you a little smarter and helps you place better bets. So go to betonline.net, make an account, and use promo code LOCKED ON to place to do what? Oh, yeah. And you get a credit. So they'll match your first deposit up to 50%. Man, that was a good one that got butchered. Kind of like being hip to hip with the guy in coverage and then giving up a touchdown on a Randy Moss special in the back corner of the end zone. But either way, go to BetOnline, folks. BetOnline.net. Make your account. Use promo code Locked On. So going back to the DB room, Khalil Young brings up a few things, right? Talking about Kevin from X's and Knowles, also a good one to watch with his small plant he's got in the background there, Kevin. We appreciate you watering small little desert plants. So you keep being you. He's seen practice and is high on Thomas and admitted McCall is slightly better in coverage, whereas Thomas is just a little green and relies a lot on his length, which allows him to get beat off the line by quicker, smaller wide receivers like Rhodes and Ramsey. But eventually he saves himself with his length and speed. I think putting them at corner allows them to have the highest ceiling given their skill set. So I agree with the move. Yeah, I appreciate the insight there. So I kind of want to take that and just like go off on a, kind of fork off of that comment and just talk about our two freshmen that we're hearing are impressing a lot in spring practice at a position we've identified. We need guys to step up and Sam McCall, Azareye'h Thomas. I feel like McCall was more highly heralded. I feel like Thomas has been kind of a surprise. I mean, I like to think I know a decent bit about recruiting, and I didn't really expect to hear what we're hearing about him. Who do y'all expect a better freshman campaign from, Thomas or McCall?
Dave knows my answer, so I want Dave to go first with this one.
Yeah, me and Drake have gone back and forth on this several times. I gotta think it's Sam McCall. Like, he's a top 50 overall player composite nationally. Like, I hate that this is the last time that happened, but it was Demore Tate, who, also this year could be another good DB for us. But Sam McCall looking at his high school tape, like, a lot of people lumped him in as, oh, Travis Hunter has been doing all this recruiting and has kept Sam McCall on board. Like, that's tight. Like, it wasn't just about Travis Hunter. Sam McCall in his own right is the best DB we got in this class and was one of the best DBs nationally. We are lucky to have him. Go back and look at his high school tape. That dude is explosive. That dude can contribute, I think, day one. I know what you're going to say about what you've seen in practice, or what you've heard about, what they've looked like in practice. I got to think when the lights come on and this season starts, Sam McCall is going to be contributing day one against Duke Duquesne.
David Duquesne.
But no, it's Azareye'h Thomas, and that's for damn sure. I am in the belief that when it's all said and done and both their FSU careers are over, Azareye'h Thomas is going to be the better of the two. And I primarily think it's that long, lanky frame that he's not Jalen. I'm not saying that right now. So please don't say that in the comments. That's coming out of my mouth. That did not come out of my mouth.
You said it. Drake said he's like Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, I know. Red Pill Stepdad's going to clip that and I'm going to put that on Twitter again. But no, he actually does that very, very well. He's not a blazer speed, but he knows how to utilize his body to slow down people that are much faster than him. Something that we did see in a Jalen Ramsey, and you saw that a lot in the Super Bowl, again, with the Rams and the Bengals, too, when he was matched up towards Jamar Chase. And this is someone that, quite frankly, I don't think either starts the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if Azareye'h Thomas is actually the one starting first, because in practice, he's so far been one of the best defensive backs. And when you hear that coming out of camp, especially when it's a freshman, that's all the hype I need. He's a former top 100 kid. I think he's a former top 5 athlete per recruiting rankings. Like, this is a kid that people forgot about him in recruiting on signing day because of Travis Hunter. And if y'all watch the commitment ceremony, this is a kid that definitely has gone through a lot to get where he is now. And that's a dangerous person to actually bet against. So I'm not betting against him. I'm taking Azareye'h Thomas.
Hey, Max, by the way, before you add to this, McCall ran an 11.10 in the 100 meter and a 22.69 in the 200 meter in high school. And that was as a junior and a sophomore.
He ran
that dude's fast. He ran an 11.1 second 100 meter dash as a junior and a 12.69 second 200 meter as a sophomore in high school.
Point is, there's a lot of pedigree on both sides. Sam McCall, 5-star kid coming in. I think that's an awesome point about it was sort of assumed that Travis Hunter was why he was coming in. Like, I mean, as soon as we heard Travis Hunter might not be coming, we're like, did Sam McCall sign that? Like, he signed that letter, right? Like when can he transfer?
Everyone thought he was going to transfer out.
We thought we were going to see the first ever transfer before they stepped foot on campus type deal. And we haven't seen that, right? We've seen a kid show up, buy in, get to practice and work hard. I don't know. It's just odd that Thomas was so under the radar. I take the point about Travis Hunter, but Thomas was a wide receiver for the most part in high school. And I think he was pitched to us as like a high 4-star, but an athlete. It was like, yeah, he could play wide receiver, could play DB. And now it sounds like we got a primmed and polished blue chip DB playing back there. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's a nice surprise. So I think, let me ask this. When we say day one contributor, Dave, I know you said the David Duquesne's, but like, is that day one or is that what we like to do? Is that day zero? Like, what I'm saying is like, I feel like you got to play against LSU to be counted as like a day one. Like Duquesne is
Sam McCall will see the field against LSU for sure.
I think that's right. I think both of them do. And I think they flash in different ways. I think Sam McCall is probably going to do some stuff that's going to make you go, that's a nice player across a selection of plays, right? Meaning he was out there for 6 plays. He had a good 6 plays. I think from what I'm hearing and what I've seen on video, Azareye'h is maybe not going to be as solid like in a 6-play bulk, but he's going to do some stuff that makes you go, whoa, where did that kid come from? He just has that, just kind of that freaky twitch, but he seems less consistent. So I think they both could have good years though. In fact, I'd go as far as to say, I think we need them both to have good years. I don't think our room's deep enough where we can have a 5-star and a high 4-star not performing in our DB room.
Yeah. What else is new? Join the club.
And folks, if you want to join the club, make sure that wherever you're listening, you subscribe, make sure that you follow, and make sure you come back tomorrow and the day after and the day after and the day after that and the one after that, Monday through Friday. We are Locked On Seminoles. We bring it to you 5 days a week. That was Drake. That was Dave. I'm Max. This was Locked On Seminoles, and we will see y'all tomorrow.
Take care, everybody.
So no.